Hey there, Brian Bram here from Eagles Wings Community Church, doing another blog on my series on theologizing in the emergent church for my class this summer, and made another visit to another church, and this one happened to be a very large megachurch, a Baptist megachurch, and a few comments on the church as it regards just overall my interviews that I did with a couple members of the church, and then of course that sort of fifth major theme of space as it sort of relates to the emergent church theme of space. So here we go. It'll be pretty informal, and I'll be kind of looking at my notes here down below from my interviews and such, just like the last time. So this particular church was pretty obviously a seeker-friendly church. There's, of course, good things and bad things on that. I won't really comment too much on that, but it was pretty obvious that was a major focus. I also know kind of firsthand that there's sort of a lot of statistics that are done behind the scenes to find out what people like and what they don't like, what causes them to be more or less likely to come back and visit again, and so on and so forth. So be that as it may, that's kind of not the focus of this particular blog, but it might provide some good background as we go throughout the video here. So one thing that was pretty noticeable, even though there was some, I'm not going to say that there wasn't any, there was not very much diversity in terms of ethnic diversity, and I'm not sure exactly what the demographics are in that particular area of town, but certainly it seemed like probably there could be more ethnic diversity there. There's a lot of things going well there. The people that I interviewed, I mean, just absolutely love this particular church, and you know, that has to say something pretty significant, I think. That I mean, appeared to be most of the people that I interacted with. That appeared to be pretty much a consensus. So the people definitely enjoyed the church. As a matter of fact, one of the people that I interviewed, one of the big reasons that they began going to this church was because her husband kept falling asleep in church, and she herself kind of dreaded the messages. They were kind of boring, and this was definitely a lot more passionate. And passion was definitely a major theme for both of the people that I interviewed from the church. And it was pretty easy to see that there was a lot of passion going on with the sermon, and then of course the music, and really top to bottom, beginning to end, there was recognizable passion throughout the experience. So it wasn't uncommon to hear about sermons that were given that caused people to laugh and cry and run through a kind of a gamut of emotions. I think that's okay, so long as it isn't sort of manufactured in hopes of sort of a manipulating way. It didn't appear to be. So hopefully that can kind of is the case throughout. It was definitely a emotional sermon that was delivered the day I was there, but it did, like I said, it didn't seem to be manufactured. It seemed to be pretty genuine. So. In terms of, I think it's Christian education. A lot of times, people, when I bring up the question about it, Christian education, they immediately kind of jump right to kids, and that was kind of the first reaction from the people that I interviewed. But both of them eventually got around to adult education too. So I was happy to kind of hear that, because I think that's important to realize that Christian education isn't just the kids, but it's the adults too. As a matter of fact, even the elderly were kind of mentioned in one of the interviews too. So they seem to have a definite recognition that various age groups tend to enjoy being educated in kind of different ways. So One might like to call it a Bible study, one might like to call it a small group, another might like to call it a discussion, so it just kind of depended, and they seemed to be kind of catering towards the different age groups, so I thought that was good. In terms of how often they're encouraged to study or interpret Scripture, it seemed like they were very encouraged to study Scripture, and so that was good. On the other hand, it also kind of seemed like, in terms of interpreting Scripture, the desire seems to be that they kind of want everyone to sort of land on the same page when it comes to interpretation. So it's pretty likely that there is sort of one major dominant theology that runs through the church, not a lot of diversity in the theology there. So that might be something to kind of work on, I suppose. But they were definitely encouraged very often to study. One also mentioned that the pastors do a good job of putting that responsibility on the people, on the congregation, studying Scripture. So it isn't just the leaders studying Scripture. They're really encouraging the whole congregation to do so, which is good. I was curious to sort of learn how much leadership might mention that it's okay if you come to a different conclusion, and maybe that's the case on occasion. It doesn't seem to be prominent, at least from what I could tell in my limited visit. In terms of some of the things that they really liked, of course, we've talked and mentioned about the Passion. A relationship with Jesus is stressed, and I think that's definitely a positive thing. The sermons were another thing that people really seemed to enjoy. So there were particular people that they really liked to hear, and they continued to go largely for the ability to listen to those particular people preach and teach. So I think nothing wrong with that, although I do talk a little bit in the blog about sort of expanding out from there. Some of the challenges, obviously, because it's a mega church, very large, so some of the challenges are basically you sort of have to plug yourself in. It seemed like they were trying to do a good job of helping people to get plugged in, both in person and through the literature and things like that you would get when you visit. But it sounds like sometimes it might be a little bit hard to get to know people. Certainly in larger mega churches, not just in this one, but it becomes pretty easy for somebody to kind of slip in and slip out and sort of go unnoticed. So they had some various things to try to sort of combat against that with some of the welcoming teams and information booths and those kinds of things. So they were definitely making strides, but there's just no hiding the fact that it's such a large church that if you really want to hide, you can. There's a lot of, it does seem to be a lot of community outreach in this church, and it seemed to be a strength of the church that they were able to get a lot of people involved. So it wasn't just, once again, leadership doing all the work and the members kind of just attending and then not doing much. They really did seem, at least from my interviews, to be a lot of involvement. There were everything from very grassroots efforts of feeding the poor and supporting poverty-stricken children, to even other sort of, I don't know what to describe it, but other things like coaching baseball and softball and some of those kinds of things. So there was definitely a heavy emphasis on inviting other people to the services. The church had various sort of invitation cards and that kind of thing, I think those are actually pretty good ideas. To sort of wrap up, one unwritten rule was one of my questions that I asked, and one of the unwritten rules that kind of struck me was that there's really not, they're really discouraged from talking about politics, for sure from the leadership group, there really aren't any messages on politics as a whole or supporting one particular party or another, and I definitely feel that that is a wise move. I think not only in an effort to be a seeker-friendly church, but it just seems to be something fairly in line with the teaching of New Testament Scripture and especially Jesus himself on sort of how to handle politics. But maybe that's something that you want to debate with me in the blog. So check it out, and blessings to you.